and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am super excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. And today on the podcast, I am really excited to be joined by Amanda Hughes. Amanda is a brand photographer based in Scotland, UK. She works with all types of small businesses, including yoga teachers who have their own small businesses. And in this episode, we're talking about why it's important to have great brand photos for your yoga business and the benefits of hiring a photographer. And while I love this topic, I also recognize that for a lot of us starting out, we don't have the budget or the funds to hire a professional photographer. And I get that because that was me when I started out, wanting to get great photos, but not having the budget behind me to actually hire a photographer. And so one of the other things that I chatted about with Amanda, which I'm so excited about, is her top tips for getting great photos yourself. So for those of you who are just starting out who can't afford a professional photographer just yet, we talk about equipment, lighting, selfies, how to get great photos and why they're important, and so much more. So we're diving into both aspects of brand photography, both getting yoga photos yourself and how to do it, as well as what to look for in a photographer, what to think about when it comes to your shoots and all that type of stuff. So we talk about so much goodness in this episode, and I hope that you really enjoy it. All right, without further ado, here is Amanda. Welcome to the podcast today, Amanda. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you. Also, Amanda, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always funny to interview somebody with the same name. It's like, hi, Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
I know, we're taking over.
Yeah, I love it. And where are you joining me from today?
So I'm in Scotland in the UK. I live on the west coast of Scotland, right by the beach. So yeah, that's where I am. Not close to where you are at all.
No, we've only been so my husband's father was actually born in Scotland. So my husband is a citizen by blood, I guess. And we've only been once, like over a decade ago. So I'd really love to get back to Scotland. It's such a beautiful country.
Oh, you should. Where did you go when you were here?
We did kind of like the bigger cities like Edinburgh, Glasgow, and then went up to do like the Highlands and stuff like that. But I would love to just like rent a car or a van or something and like drive around for a couple weeks.
Oh, you should. Those are lovely places you've been to, right enough. But yeah, if you get the chance, it is a nice place.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to do that. So yeah, I'm just imagining your maybe gray skies and
yeah, it's dark.
Fall colors happening right now. It seems like it's beautiful in the fall in Scotland.
It is. It's lovely. And Edinburgh's particularly nice in the autumn. So it's just 5:05 p.m. here and it's really dark. That's at nighttime now.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
I know those vibes. I'm from Canada, so I definitely understand the sun setting early. Thankfully, I don't experience that where I live in Mexico.
No, and I'm jealous if you're from Canada of all the snow that you'll have experienced in your lifetime.
Yeah, plenty of snow.
Oh, I love the snow, but where we are near the beach, we don't get it here often. Further up, Scotland gets a lot of snow, but not so much here. I wish we did.
Yeah, I'm like, I live in Mexico to avoid the snow.
Yeah, no snow in Mexico.
Yeah, I feel like it's nice for like a week, like once a year.
Yeah, fair enough, because it is quite extreme in Canada, isn't it?
Yeah, where I'm from, it's like 8 months of the year. It was getting to be too much. I was like, I got to get out of this country.
Oh, that's fair. You went complete opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. So I'm curious if you can tell me a bit about yourself and what you do to kick things off.
Sure, yep. So, yep, I'm based here in Scotland. I live here with my husband and we have 3-year-old boy-girl twins, and a rather boisterous dog as well, who's lying down next to me at the minute. I wonder how long for. before he'll want to get up and want something, want involved. So I've been self-employed for quite a long time, over 10 years now, which feels really quite unbelievable. First off, my first business was a wedding and event floristry business. So I always had an interest in photography, and through my first self-employed business, worked with lots of other small businesses, and really, really enjoyed that aspect of it, and really enjoyed the photography side of my own business. I spent a lot of time taking photos of the large designs we did at weddings and whatnot for promotion, and really, really enjoyed that. So fast forward a few years, there was, of course, the COVID pandemic, which none of us were immune to. And just a lot of life changes, and I just felt like I needed a change, felt like I'd done a lot with my first business and I was ready for a change, and really, really wanted to pursue photography, and really, really wanted to work with other small businesses. So fast forward to now, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So set up a new business, Shop by Amanda, and I am helping other small businesses grow, which I'm incredibly passionate about, through online brand and product photography, and some other things I'm doing as well, some like online courses, and do a monthly blog with lots of tips, lots of information out there on Instagram as well. So that's where I'm at just now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm curious, what was it about photography that kind of made you think like, hey, I kind of want to go this route specifically? Because it sounds like with like wedding and event planning, you're probably doing a lot of different things. I'm curious what it was about photography that kind of drew you into like, let's specialize with this.
Yeah, it's quite the change, isn't it? So I was always interested in photography. Way, way back, my 9 to 5 job career was in banking, in retail banking. So I did that for a long time, and hated it for a long time, but did it for a long time. Um, and then I was at that point looking to pursue photography because I've always had an interest in it as a hobby. But the jobs just weren't there. Couldn't find anything that was available at the time. I would rather learn at the time. I would have rather learn on the job than go back to like full-time education. So I was looking for something like that, but it just wasn't really available at the time. And then a floristry position came up, and I honestly just thought, yeah, sure, I fancy a change and go for it, and then loved it. So did that, and I was always wanting to do something. I was wanting to learn something that I could do for myself. So that was a lot of the idea behind that as well. So yeah, I went for floristry and did on the job training along with college learning, and really picked that up and loved it. Realised quite quickly that I really enjoyed large scale designs rather than just kind of day-to-day shop stuff, hence going down the wedding and events side of things. Um, but yeah, as I say, my photography passion just never went away. And I spent a lot of time in my floristry business on the photography, after events, taking photos to use on our social media and website, whatnot at the time for promotion. So I felt as if in a way I was able to do that as well, the photography alongside the floristry, because I could take the photos for promotion for the business. As I say, and then got to know a lot of fellow small business owners during that time as well, and all the sorts of challenges that we come across and our sort of pain points. And really enjoyed those conversations, and became quite obvious, a kind of obvious calling, for want of a better word, that that's really what I wanted to do work-wise, was combine photography with working with other small business owners. And so, yeah, the opportunity came up and I went for it.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And I feel like because of what you were doing before, you must have been connected with like so many people who you knew needed your services and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's been really good actually, to have a bit of a network of small business friends to fall back on, to chat with, to talk about all the sort of challenges that we face. I know quite a lot of photographers as well, and have done for a while, and they've been very supportive of my career change, which has been a real good help.
Hey, yoga teachers, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Offering Tree. Now, I have a question for you. How many paid subscriptions to different platforms do you have in your business? Is it 1, 2, 5, more than that? Subscriptions can be stealthy. You sign up for free, you use the platform for a while, and then discover that you have to upgrade to a paid plan, and suddenly you find you are subscribed all over the place and the costs are ramping up. Well, with Offering Tree, you get to cancel all your subscriptions because you can pull everything all together in one place. This is one of the things that I love most about the Offering Tree platform. Your website, email marketing, on demand library, blog, booking software, and even accepting payments happens all right there in one platform. And most importantly, with one very responsive support team. I had an issue with one of my courses the other day. I sent them a message, and within a couple hours, I had it solved. I was super impressed. So, what are you waiting for? Head on over to offeringtree.com/MBOM to sign up for a no commitment free trial and get a little discount if you do decide to work with Offering Tree. Once again, that's offeringtree.com/MBOM. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm curious, I want to tie this into yoga because I feel like this is, such an important topic for yoga teachers, for people with yoga businesses. Can we talk a little bit about why it's important to have, great photos of your brand, of yourself for a yoga business? I mean, any wellness business really, but kind of specifically a yoga business?
Yeah, absolutely. And this past year, I've worked with quite a lot of yoga teachers, some standalone yoga teachers, some yoga teachers who also do cold water therapy, which has just been, yeah, it's been fantastic. I've been in a lot of cold water with my camera,
You're
which
brave.
I've not always been delighted about, but especially here in Scotland, it is not warm. It is definitely cold, but no, hats off to them. They're doing a great job. So I've really got to know a lot about yoga teachers in that industry and really how important it is to use images to show off your yoga business. I think when everything dials down back to your ideal client who you're trying to attract, and if you are running classes for beginner yoga, for example, then if I was just thinking of taking up yoga for the first time, I would probably be a bit nervous. And one of the thoughts might be, what if the teacher's really experienced and really fit? And what if everyone there is really fit and they know what they're doing? And I'm just walking in for the first time and I don't. But you can really share that experience through your images and through your social media and website. I mean, you can share the bloopers because we've all tried to get into a pose and had a wee wobble, had a fall. You can share what your class looks like through professional brand photography. Yeah, you can share your whole setup, and that instantly takes some of that scariness away for a new client to get in touch. So super important. Yeah, super important to be able to put that out there that people can really connect with.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's something about like having your own photos of you, like actually doing your teaching or what you offer to the people, like you said, your ideal client versus just like grabbing stock images off the internet. Cause it's like, there's a lot of beautiful, amazing stock images on the internet, but it's like they're not you, right? And they're not your student. So while they can portray a certain feeling or a vibe, it's like they're not portraying exactly what you're doing. And I feel like it's so important to have stuff that's very like, the environment that you teach in and like the like way that you teach. And, if you teach seniors to have seniors in the photos, if you teach kids to have kids in the photos, I feel like it can just really like photos can just really capture how you actually run your business, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially I've through working with the teachers that I've worked with, really understanding that yoga is a particularly personal type of exercise. It's not like the kind of thing that people tend to dip in and out of for weight loss or anything. It's more of a kind of lifestyle change. And there seems to be various reasons why people would take up yoga. So it's a very personal thing. And as you say, there are lots of awesome stock images out there you could use, but that in itself could be a barrier for a new student to get in touch with you if that's what they think all yoga teachers and all yoga classes look like. They look perfect and airbrushed. So to be able to show what your studio really does look like, it's real, to maybe incorporate you with a student in your brand shoot as well, to show them what your teaching's like, to show a class, just showing you doing one-to-one, show you yourself, just a bit of everything. It really does break down barriers for clients to feel more comfortable to get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I feel like there's a couple different sort of ways that you can do photos. So there's like, obviously, you can get photos done of yourself, just, maybe in wherever you teach. So if it's like a studio or a park or like the city you teach in, to just do some like brand photos of you doing poses, headshots. But then there's also kind of what we're talking about where it's like maybe in the classroom environment or in the studio environment or maybe an outdoor class. I'm curious kind of the logistics for if you're going to do photography classes. Like, do you find that most of the teachers that you work with who do this like just bring like invite a couple of students who they know really well to like come and do those? Do they do a real class and just get permission to take photos during them? Like, what kind of works best for that?
Yeah, a bit of both actually. So I've done a few where it's been a real class with maybe a smaller group. And they're more than happy to have their photo taken, so that's no problem, and that's a really real experience. I mean, at the end of the day, someone's in the room with a camera, so there is a bit of nervousness there, but you can get a very real image of what's going on there. Excuse me. And some have invited friends along, and other yoga teachers have got together and as if they're teaching each other. If you're just starting out, you might not have a client base, and you might not have friends that are up for you putting them into certain positions. So if you've got another yoga teacher friend that you could use as a student, then that's really good for images as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great idea. And do you have to worry about any like, I guess, like permissions, or is it simple enough to just say like, hey, you know, are you comfortable with like having photos taken for this class and getting somebody to say like yay or nay?
Yeah, so it's best if the yoga teacher who's having the shoot puts out to everyone and definitely have to ask for everyone's permission that's involved to be photographed and let them know what those photographs are going to be used for. It's for promotional purposes, if they're going to appear in printed flyers or online, and make sure that they're either replying to an email or they're signing something to say that that's okay, that they permit to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that because I'm sure that it's like one thing to just get your own photos taken. Obviously, you're totally comfortable with that. But another thing, if you're like, hey, I want like real people in my photos, how do I go about doing that? So I feel like that's definitely important information. And then I'm curious, and I know we're going to talk about like for anyone starting out, if you can't hire a photographer, how to do, get some great photos to start. But I'm curious if we can talk about the benefits of hiring a photographer because I feel like, I've done various photo shoots over the years for my yoga teaching, my business. And, some of them have just been like, hey, I have a friend who's good with an iPhone, going to take some photos versus like actually hiring somebody professionally. So I feel like I definitely understand the benefits, but I'm curious for somebody who's maybe listening, who's like, oh, I'm just not sure if it's like worth the investment. Like, what are some of the benefits of actually working with a professional photographer?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great question, and you're right. Lots of people would be thinking that. There's so much that we can do on our phones now, isn't there? So there's a lot that we feel that we can do ourselves. But the benefits of hiring a professional brand photographer, oh gosh, there's so many. But I think one of the important things is it beginners you're trying to attract? You mentioned seniors, more experienced, what type of yoga? And then we really drill down into who these images are for and what message it is that you want to put out so that you're getting the absolute most out of your investment. So that part there before we even pick up the camera or head into the studio is super important. A brand photographer will probably always put a visual mood board together for you following your kind of get to know you session so that we've got an idea, just for inspiration that we're on the right page with the types of images and the types of lighting that we're talking about. Um, and that's a good visual way to make sure that you're happy to go ahead. And then, of course, when we have the shoot and you've got your images, you've then got a whole bank of images that you can use probably for quite a while. I mean, I do recommend getting your brand photos updated regularly. But how good is it to have a bank of professional images that you can absolutely count on to use for your social media or to update your website? And using professional images as well, that you've actually hired a professional photographer, that in itself puts a message out to your clients, your potential clients, to tell them you're really serious about your brand. You're serious about offering them the best service that you can. And again, it really helps them visualize being your client. They can imagine themselves there in your actual studio working with you. So yeah, it's really important. It's that first impression, isn't it? If when your potential clients visit your social media pages or your websites for the first time, you really want to make sure that straight away they're receiving the message that you want them to receive when they land upon you. And professional photographs can absolutely do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great information. And then I'm curious, if somebody like when you're working with somebody, if they have kind of like a vision for something, you obviously like encourage them to kind of send you any like inspiration photos to kind of help with that mood board so that you guys can kind of like, create that vision together, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And then in terms of like actually, setting up for a photo shoot, what are your thoughts on kind of like indoors, outdoors, changing outfits, poses versus like looking at the camera, having a variety, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of all of that. And again, it's down to what suits that yoga teacher and who they're trying to attract. So if you are primarily a studio based teacher, then we're definitely going to do things in the studio and show them your studio at different angles, at different lights. I personally prefer to shoot in natural light. I think it just find it the most flattering. So if there's, a window or an open door we can use, then great. But if not, and your studio's got no windows, I've shot in one like that before, that's absolutely fine. We go for whatever it is that suits your vibe and the message that you're trying to put out. So I've shot in studios with no windows and pretty much just lit up with fairy lights. I've shot on the top of rocks, almost cliffside, shot at the beach in all conditions, rain, blinding sun, shot in the water, in the waves, and still water in a loch. So yeah, and that's purely because that's what suited all of these teachers. That's the message they were trying to put out, and that's where they were planning to teach. So yeah, it's really down to that, and outfit changes as well. If we are doing a proper brand shoot, taking our time with it, then I would absolutely recommend a couple of outfit changes. Again, so that when you're using these images going forward, it's not obvious that they were all taken at the same time. It's nice to mix it up a little bit, keep your content exciting and interesting for the people that are viewing it. Yeah, so by all means, bring a couple of outfit changes and location changes as well. We can do that. I have some yoga teacher clients who teach in studio and on the beach. So we've did either made it two shoots, or if they're nearby, we can do an hour at one, an hour at another. So again, if you're booking a brand photographer, this is the kind of things you want to chat through before making that investment and making sure it's going to really suit what it is that you want, because it's a lot of money that you're going to part with, and you absolutely want to make sure it's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's so important to make sure. I love that you talk about having that like get to know you session and getting to like meet the person and talk through what you want and stuff just to make sure you're on the same page with creating this vision. Cause like you said, it is an investment and, it's so worth it to invest in yourself, in your business. But at the same time, it's like there's nothing worse than getting something back and like not feeling excited about it or feeling disappointed because it's not what you wanted. So I think it's so important to just be on the same page and to be communicating what you're thinking and feeling. And I love what you're talking about, maybe like an hour at the beach and then an hour in the studio is maybe you do outdoor classes, or maybe you're just very passionate about nature. So you can kind of, showcase yourself in that way while also giving somebody a really like real, picture of what it would be like to take a class with you in your studio.
Yeah, absolutely. And also during that get to know you time, probably worth pointing out as well, if at any point you're feeling that this is not a good fit with this photographer, then you absolutely must speak up and either see if you can overcome it or just say, thank you for your time, but I don't think we're a great fit for this particular shoot, and find someone else. And you actually might find that that works for the photographer as well. It might be at times the photographer's thinking we're not vibing here, we're not getting on the same page, and I don't think I'm the right fit for what you're looking for. So that's really important at that time as well, at that initial time before you actually shoot.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I feel like that's a good point to keep in mind as well. And so if somebody's listening and they're like, this sounds awesome, I would love to do this, but I'm starting out, I'm not making a lot of money so far, but I recognize, that I should have like great photos for my business, at least have a headshot, maybe some photos of me teaching, doing some poses. What are some of your tips for maybe being able to get great photos that are not necessarily from a professional photographer?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things. I would probably, if you find a brand photographer who's fairly local to you, you could always reach out and explain your situation. You're just starting right out. You've not even brought any income or anything in yet. You're just trying to get off the ground and maybe see if they offer some sort of mini headshot session or kind of mini content session. They might be happy to do that short time for a lower cost than a full brand shoot. So certainly reach out and ask. They can only say no. But if you are going to DIY your photos, then the best thing you can invest in, and it's cheap and cheerful, should be about £10 or £15 on Amazon, for example. I don't know what that equates to in other currencies, but it's not cheap. It's not expensive to get a tripod. So if you're going to use your phone to do photos, especially if you're going to be in yoga positions, a tripod will be your best friend, and a tripod that comes with a little Bluetooth device, a little clicker that can connect to your phone, so you can have that in your hand. Now, bearing in mind some of your positions, that might not be possible to hold something in your hand, or it might just not look right. In which case, then you've got your self timer if you're doing it through your phone. I would suggest putting it on not too long, but not too short, somewhere in between, so that you're not hanging around for too long for the shot to go, but it's not too quick that you can't get away from the phone and into position. So make sure you're giving yourself plenty of time. Um, yeah, and getting one of those wee clickers. Absolutely. And of course, if you have a friend or anyone else who would be willing to help you with it, then even better. I would still probably suggest using the tripod and have your phone mounted on there. You get yourself into position, ideally near natural light. Lighting is so important. So if you can get close to, or if you can be outdoors or near a window or an open door, with that light kind of to your side, then that's always really flattering. And if you've got a friend that can help, still mount the phone on the tripod, but just getting them to hit the button, and that gives you a bit more freedom to move around as well. So it's not the easiest thing, but it can be done. There are ways it can be done. And likewise, if you're looking for maybe a wee headshot at your desk, something like that, again, a tripod is perfect for that. And if you've got the phone on selfie mode, the lens turned round towards you, you can see yourself. So you can make sure you're happy with what you can see before you hit the button, which is handy as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like it is definitely like a lot of extra work to set up a tripod and then either grab a clicker, set like the self timer, get yourself into position and stuff like that. But like you said, I do feel like you can still get some really nice photos. But I love the tip of either like getting a friend or a partner or somebody to help you. Like even if they're not a photographer, they can kind of see the angles and how the light looks and stuff like that. I'm curious if you have any, I think you've mentioned kind of like natural light a couple of times now, which is great. I'm a big fan of natural light too. I'm curious, do you have like a time of day that you kind of like the light the most? I feel like photographers always have like this time of day is
Yeah.
best.
Like golden hour is what you hear all the time, which is lovely for certain things. But yeah, again, it just depends on the type of shoot. I think generally late morning tends to be quite good. It's not too bright, not too dull. So just that kind of before lunchtime tends to be a good time. But a lot's dependent on the weather, isn't it? When you're outside, what kind of day it is, and also what kind of message you're putting out there. I've got some clients who do sunset yoga sessions, so it makes more sense for us to try and do that when the light's starting to dull a little and it's heading towards sunset. Some that do sunrise sessions on the beach. So again, makes more sense for them to be there when it's really nice and bright in early morning, or certainly to find a time of day where it depicts that it's bright early morning, because you don't want it to be too bright. But the seasons and the weather will dictate a lot of that also, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm sure it's challenging being in Scotland as well with how much it
Yeah.
rains there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm coming to this time of year, like I say, it's really dark at 5 o'clock. So early morning, late morning is probably the best time, certainly in winter. And then in summer, we can have some really bright days, like anywhere. So you would want to avoid probably first thing or right bang in the middle of the day. So yeah, if I had to choose a time, just generally, I'd say late morning around 11, half 10, 11 a.m. is probably a good time, generally.
Okay. Sounds good. So kind of avoiding that like I guess like midday, really like harsh light into the early afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Any other tips for anyone who kind of wants to DIY a photo shoot?
Um, let's think. Covered the tripod, self timer. Um, Probably just giving yourself plenty of time. It's probably you're not going to be happy with the first few shots. That's just the way it goes. It's the way it goes for photographers as well. You have to warm up, find the best light, make sure everyone's happy and relaxed. It's no different if you're taking your own. So be prepared, don't think you're going to run in and out in 10 minutes and have some shots that you're really happy with. Give yourself a bit of time. Make sure you can relax, block off the morning or the afternoon. Take your time to do it. By all means, change your outfit as well when you're doing it. Yeah, but I think time is probably the biggest thing. Not to expect it to be a quick thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Thanks for that. And I feel like this is probably obviously just going to be like dependent on somebody's business, but I'm curious if you have thoughts on like kind of more simple poses when it comes to yoga versus like more kind of complicated advanced poses. Do you have any thoughts on that when it comes to shooting yoga teachers?
Yeah, so sorry, I'm like a broken record, but I think it's again back to who you're trying to attract. If you're trying to attract beginners, then let's take it easy and not scare them off with any really complicated poses. But if you are looking to attract advanced, whatever type of yoga it is, then that's what you want to go for. That's what you want to show. A lot of the teachers I work with are doing just kind of um, all welcome kind of classes, all levels. So they've done a little bit of everything, from just showing some nice stretches, even lying down positions. We've captured that to other things that are just a bit more tricky, but not too advanced, because you don't want to exclude the people who have done yoga before and are maybe coming back to it. So they're not complete beginners, but they're not ready to tie themselves upside down. So don't want to exclude them either. So I guess just again thinking about who it is you're trying to attract and doing everything for them.
Yeah, I feel very aligned with that. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the first time I did a yoga photo shoot, I was definitely like, I knew all of this, but I feel like I was like, I should do some like more advanced poses because that can, show that I know how to do these. And I just feel like they're not my favorite photos. Like, I just feel like there's so much like effort happening in them. They
Yeah,
just
I
are not
bet.
easeful. Like they're not the ones that I turn to that I use the most. And so I feel like for me over the years I've just found like simple is better, and that's definitely I don't teach advanced classes, and I don't teach like handstands and stuff, so it's like why would I do that in photos? And of course if you do teach that, then it is good to have photos of that, but I feel like sometimes we get caught up in the like I should have photos of this thing because I can do it, and I don't necessarily think that that's what we should focus on.
Absolutely. It's got to represent what it is that you actually do. You've just said it perfectly there. And I would also just as a little tip, whether you're DIYing your photography or you're working with a photographer, one of you should jot down some of the poses that you plan on doing, because I'd say about 9 out of 10 of the teachers I've worked with, when it comes to right, let's go, let's see what we've got, they have forgotten what yoga is altogether. And they can't think of a single pose that they were planning to do. They can't remember what was on the mood board. So I've always got the visual mood board with me, and I've jotted down some of the particular things that we've discussed. So even if you're doing it yourself, write down a little note, because you might find once the camera is on, it completely goes out your head what it was you were planning to do.
That's a really good tip. I feel like that has actually happened to me before with the photo shoot as well, where like we sat down and made a mood board and got a bunch of ideas. And then she's like, okay, I'll just be here like photographing you. You just like start moving. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yep. I sure had one teacher who was like, okay, what is yoga? I have no idea what is happening here.
Yeah. She's like, who's teaching me? Who's the teacher here?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that is a good pro tip because I think it's like you don't realize that maybe you will kind of like have a little bit of like stage fright per se, and that it can be like a little bit uncomfortable. So I feel like that's a good tip. And on that note, I'm curious, do you have any tips? Obviously this is different if you're DIYing, but if you are working with a photographer, obviously having that get to know you session and whatnot can help a lot. But I'm curious, do you have any tips for somebody like for the yoga teacher preparing just to get comfortable, kind of get in your zone, things you can kind of do before to just, I guess, prepare a little bit?
I mean, there probably is. At the same time, I'm not sure anything can totally prepare you to be photographed like that. It is quite, it takes a bit of getting used to, but I'm happy to say that a lot of the clients I've worked with, after 5, 10 minutes or so, we're laughing, we're having a laugh, we're having fun, and they're feeling really relaxed. And that's a lot of the feedback I get. So probably to prepare yourself to feel slightly uncomfortable at the start, and that's okay. Everybody does. So you may have already met your photographer if you met face to face, or you might have just been chatting on Zoom or an email. But either way, you're new to each other. So take that first little while just to warm up and chat. Certainly through the photographs I'm taking, I'm always chatting and trying to just build up a rapport. And that really does shine through in the photographs. So it's really important. So definitely prepare to feel a little bit uncomfortable. But then you'll break through that and you'll have lots of fun.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love that. I feel like it's good to know that it's like there's not a ton you can kind of do and just go into like preparing to feel a bit uncomfortable, but knowing that it'll go away quickly once you kind of get into the zone. I feel like that's been my experience with photos and photo shoots and stuff where it's like, the first few minutes is always a little awkward and then
Yeah.
we get into it and it's like, okay. And you can kind of see it too when you see the progression of the photos. It's like, okay, you can see we were like still getting warmed up here and then
Yep.
got kind of into my flow a little bit more after that.
Absolutely. You can usually, when you look at the gallery, you know exactly where the start was, the start of the shoot, and where the end was.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Amazing. Well, I'm curious, do you have any other tips or recommendations for any yoga teachers who are wanting to, create brand photos or anything like that?
So, yeah, do it is my top advice. Just do it. Even if you feel completely unprepared and you're not exactly over the moon with your first set of photos that you've done yourself, just do it. Getting out there unpolished is better than waiting and waiting and waiting until perfect. So if you're doing it yourself, then that would be my tip. If you're working with a brand photographer, then do your research. It is a big investment in two of your most important currencies, your money and your time. So make sure you're totally comfortable with what you're going in with and who it is that you're booking. Have a look at their style, make sure you like it, and get to know the person a little bit and make sure that there is a bit of a vibe there so that on shoot day you can build a bit of rapport. But I think for any business setting out, I would just bear in mind your branding at all times. Your branding is your entire business personality. It's everything you do through your business, the tone of voice you use to speak to your clients online and in person. And it's been really consistent with your visual branding to make sure that you're sending out the right message that you want to send. And always making sure that it's serving your ideal client. And your ideal client can change. You might start off wanting to do advanced classes or beginning classes or seniors, and that might change. You want to work with kids. So always checking in with that and making sure that your visual branding, when your client finds you, I think there's something like, it's like a 7-second rule that you've got 7 seconds to make a first impression. So make sure when anyone lands on any of your shop windows, which might be your social media or your website, or your actual physical premises as well, if you've got any sort of visual branding there, then just make sure that it's instantly sending out the right message. Just always bear that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's a great piece of advice, and I do feel like it's very normal and natural for your business to evolve, and therefore your brand to evolve, and so just continuously, looking at how you can update that and stuff like that. I was actually just looking at my headshots the other day. I just pulled a new headshot from a family photo shoot we got done like a year ago, and it's like, my other ones are from I think like 2016 at this point, which 7 years is like a lot can change in 7 years when you're in your late 20s, early 30s. And, I've become a mother and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, I definitely need to start phasing out kind of these older headshots where I look like I don't know, 27 like I was and not going on 35 like I am now.
Oh, if only we were closer, I would love to shoot with you.
I know I was looking at your work and it's just so beautiful. I would love that too. So maybe when I get to
Oh,
Scotland, we can
that,
we can
that
plan
would be
that.
so good. Please do
I
let me know where you are. I'll come find you.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a yoga studio owner slash yoga teacher friend who anytime she travels, she always books a photo shoot with like a local person. So she's got lots of photos like in her studio and, in her hometown. But every time they go on like a family vacation, whether it's to like Florida or Colorado or whatever, she books a photo shoot. So she's got these amazing yoga photos from like all over the world wherever she goes. And I was like, oh, that's a really like fun, cool idea. I should do something like that too.
That is actually, isn't it? Especially if travel's a big part of your business. And yeah, I've worked with a couple of yoga teachers who like to go to Bali to do more teaching, more learning to be taught over there before they come back and implement that here. And that's a really important part of their business to show that. So that's a great idea to find a photographer while you're over there and really show your clients that's how serious you are about delivering the service that you want to deliver, that you go abroad to find the right teaching to bring it back.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Amazing. Well, one of the things I always like to ask guests on the show is just about business lessons that they've learned through their career. And since you've been an entrepreneur for so many years, I feel like you must have numerous business lessons that you've learned. So I'm curious, just in your whole career, not even just photography, like what are some of the biggest business lessons and takeaways that you have?
Oh gosh, so many. Yeah, there's been a few ups and downs. I am pretty passionate about branding. I know I've touched on that a few times, but I remember when I started out, I thought branding started and ended at your logo. And I remember before I'd done anything else, I hired a graphic designer to make me a logo just based purely on a design that I liked and colours that I liked. No further research beyond that. And I thought that was Brandon taken care of. But no, it's absolutely not. And it took a long time to learn that. That the whole ideal client thing, that everything comes back to that. So yeah, I have honestly learned of all the courses I've taken and all the different things I've tried, learning about your ideal client avatar, this person who, if you could clone and have them come to all your classes, learn who they are, constantly check in with it, and do everything for them. And P.S., your logo is a very, very small part of your branding.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I've done a couple episodes like solely focused on branding, and that's like every branding expert is like. So everyone thinks I'm going to talk about logos today, and branding is a lot more than that. So yeah, I'm glad we're talking about, the photography, the image aspect of it today, because I feel like that, is another key piece to it. But it is interesting when you start out, you think like, oh, I got to get my name and my colors and my logo down, and then I'll like understand my brand. But yeah, so much more when it comes to the way you speak to people, the words that you use, who you're actually talking to and getting clear about that, what they actually need from you, what service you're providing them and stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really important thing to understand at the start, and like I mentioned before, to check in with regularly as well, because it will change, and it's totally fine that it changes your ideal client. It means that your business is growing and you're growing and things are changing. That's a good thing. Equally, if it stays the same and you're happy doing what you're doing, all good. Whatever works for you, just make sure you're checking in with it to make sure you're still on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Amazing. Is there any last business lessons, tips, anything you want to leave people with before we wrap up today, Amanda?
I don't think so. We've covered quite a lot there, haven't we? But yeah, just do it. Definitely just do it. Unfinished, unperfect is better than waiting, waiting, waiting for the right time, because there is no right time. The right time is now, if that's what you want to do. So just get yourself out there, get yourself in front of the camera, show us what you can do. And your photography, if you're DIYing it, will evolve over time with more experience, or your budget will increase where you can hire someone to help. So either way, the best thing is just to start.
Amazing. I love that. And on that note, where can people go to find you if they want to follow along with you, check out your courses? If anyone's based in Scotland, maybe do a photo shoot with you, where can they find all the good stuff?
Oh, that would be great. So I hang out most days in one format or another on Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram, Shot by Amanda. Or there's a website, www.shotbyamanda.co.uk, and all of the information is on there. Client reviews, gallery of images, how our brand shoots work. I also do photography membership as well, where you can have a membership so that your photography is taken care of all year round for like a monthly fee. So yeah, lots of information on them on the website, and just day to day, you can find me on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been such a fun and interesting conversation, and I'm so excited to share this. So thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was lovely chatting with you.
All right, my friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Amanda Hughes. Make sure you go check her out just to see her business and her brand. If you're in Scotland, of course, go book a session with her because she has amazing work. And I hope that you guys enjoyed those tips and are just feeling a little bit more excited about creating your own brand and photography and all that type of stuff. As always, a big thank you to Offering Tree for sponsoring this episode of the show, and a big thank you to you for being here, for sharing, for listening, all that good stuff. I couldn't do it without you guys. All right, that's all from me, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.